This is the story of Joseph and his brothers in Egypt. It's coming from Genesis 42 through 47. Now Jacob sent his sons to Egypt to buy grain, but he didn't send Benjamin for fear that he wouldn't return. The brothers in Egypt bow before Joseph. They don't recognize Joseph, but Joseph recognizes them. He accuses them of being spies. They deny it, saying they're honest men, the 12 sons of one father. Their youngest brother was back in Canaan with their father, and one of them was no more. But Joseph said no. He put them in prison for 3 days to test them. Then Joseph said that one of them would have to remain in prison. The rest could return to their homes and families with the grain, but they couldn't return unless they brought the youngest brother with them, that is Benjamin. Now Joseph bound Simeon. Now Reuben and the others, they were saying that they were being punished because of what they had done to Joseph. And Reuben said, "Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? Now we're going to have to account for his blood." So Joseph, as I said, bound Simeon. Then he filled their grain sacks and he put their silver back in their grain sacks and he sent them on their way. Now later they opened up their sacks and they found they found the silver in their grain sacks. And they told their father that the man in Egypt had accused them of being spies, but they had told him that they were honest men, the 12 sons of one father, and that their youngest brother was back in Canaan and that one of them was no more. But the man said that not to return to Egypt without the youngest son. So Jacob refused to let them go back, but Reuben said that if anything happened to Benjamin, that Jacob could kill his 2 sons. But Jacob said, "Joseph is dead and Simeon is gone, and if anything happens to Benjamin, then you'll bring my gray head down to the grave in sorrow." Now later, when they ran out of grain, Jacob told his sons to return to Egypt. But Judah said, the man in charge in Egypt said, "We cannot return without our youngest brother Benjamin." So Judah pleads with Jacob, saying he would take full responsibility for Benjamin, and if anything happened to him, then Judah would be responsible, or he would bear the blame for the rest of his life. So Jacob, he sends them to Egypt. He gives them gifts to bring to the man in charge of Egypt. He gives them double the silver and sends Benjamin with them. And he says, "May God be merciful to you so that you all return with both Simeon and Benjamin." The brothers go to Egypt. They meet with Joseph's steward. They tell him that they found their silver in the sacks, but the steward said that their God had given them treasure, so he released Simeon and he took the brothers to Joseph's house. Now the brothers, they bow before Joseph, they give Joseph gifts, and then Joseph has them seated at a table in the exact order of their births, and this shocks them. And then Joseph has them serve their food, and Benjamin's portion was 5 times that of his brothers. Now the brothers ate and they drank freely together. Now Joseph put their grain in their sacks, put the silver back in the sacks again, and he put his silver cup, his special silver cup, in Benjamin's sack. Now he sent the brothers away, and then he sent his steward after them. And when the steward caught up with them, he said, "You have stolen my master's silver cup." And the brothers said, "Why would we brought back the silver? Why would we steal from your master?" And the steward said, "Whoever is found with the cup will become my slave." So they opened their sacks, and the silver cup was found in Benjamin's sack. So they were taken back to Egypt. The brothers bow before Joseph, and Judah says to Joseph, "We are all now your slaves." But Joseph says, "No, only the one in whose sack the silver cup was found will become my slave." But Judah says to Joseph, now the boy is my father's youngest son. He's the only remaining son of his mother, and his brother is dead. I told my father said that if anything happens to him, he would go, his gray head would go down to the grave in sorrow. Now, he pleads with Joseph, saying, take me in and make me a slave in the place of my brother Benjamin, for I could not bear to see the misery that would come upon my father. Now, Joseph was so moved by this that he told everyone to leave except for his brothers, and Joseph revealed his identities, saying, I am Joseph, who you have sold, or you sold into Egypt. Now do not be angry with yourselves, for God was the one who sent me here ahead of you to save lives by making me ruler over all Egypt. Now there will be 5 more years of famine, so go and get our father and bring your families back to Egypt, and I will take care of you. And Joseph, he hugged or embraced Benjamin, his brother, and he kissed his brothers, and he wept over them. Now Joseph gave his brothers abundant provisions for the journey, and he sent them back to Egypt, saying, do not quarrel on the way. And when they went back to Canaan, they told their father that Joseph was alive and that he was ruler in Egypt, and Jacob didn't believe them until he saw all the gifts that Joseph had sent. And then Jacob said, my son Joseph is alive, and I will go down and see him before I die. And then Jacob offered a sacrifice to the Lord, and the Lord spoke to Jacob, saying, Israel, do not be afraid to go down in Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there, and I will bring you back to this land, the land of Canaan. So in Egypt, Joseph embraced his father Jacob, and they wept together. And Jacob said, now I am ready to die, for I have seen my son Joseph, and he is still alive. Now the Lord blessed Jacob, and he blessed the Israelites, so that the Israelites were fruitful, and they increased in number. And when it was time for Jacob to die, he said to his son Joseph, he said, when I die, promise me that you will bring me up out of Egypt and bury me with my fathers in Canaan. And Joseph promised Jacob, and Jacob, or Israel, worshiped the Lord as he leaned upon his staff. And this is the story of Joseph and his brothers in Egypt.